So basically, TestNG is the most important, you can say, library or tool which help us to automate test cases, right? So let's say for test cases management, we use test rails, right? And in test rails, we use test plan to execute test cases. And this is done by human, right? Let me confirm I have started the recording. Okay. So how do we manage test cases? So in test rail, we have test suites, right? We have test sections. We have test cases. We have test steps. And then in test cases, we also have test description. We have test priority. All the things in this test cases, we have precondition and post condition, right? So all these things are actually provided by both test case management plus execution is done through TestNG. So this is where TestNG help us. So TestNG provides all these things like test suites, test sections, test cases, precondition, post condition, test description, priority, steps, execution, right? So so in this session we will learn how do we do all these things in TestNG. And not just that, TestNG has little bit extra also, because this is why we are using TestNG, not JUnit. So test case management, basically everything here which we talked about is done in TestNG. So TestNG have a TestNG XML which can run the whole suite. It can run multiple classes, it can run multiple packages, it can run multiple methods, whatever you want based on your requirement, right? Test section, which also we could call it a modules, or here this is done using groups, right? Suits XML. For this we have suits XML, and this is achieved through groups. So let's say we want to run only regression test cases, or we want to run only sanity test cases or smoke test cases or particular module test cases. This is where groups comes into the play. You use groups in TestNG test cases, and then using XML you can run particular groups, right? Test cases, precondition and post condition. Here we have TestNG annotations. So before and after, we have method, test, class, groups, and suit. Everything can be possible. So if you want to use before, generally we use before method and after method because we want everything in a clean state before running anything. But certain activities like cleaning up data or running some SQL queries before we start our test can be done in before suit or after suit also. Based on requirements, sometimes on a particular module we need to do certain activities. So for that we can use before class or before group, whatever you want to use. And test, let's say especially in mobile automation, we run parallel is equal to test because of different devices. We need to use different combination. So there you could say for before Android devices do certain activities, before iOS devices do certain activities using before test. Test description, it's already present in terms of description. Priority again present as a priority. Steps, this is where we write. So if you remember during the automation stuff, like in one of the earlier classes, I told about that logic we write is actually test case steps, right? So steps and then assertions, right? Expected equals. It's actually has a lot of assertion via polymorphism, right? This is done via programming, not by TestNG. And this is again is TestNG assertion. Okay. Execution. How does the execution happens? So execution happens through TestNG suite. Okay. And if you are working with Grader, Maven, then we have Surefire plugin, which help us to integrate Maven and TestNG together. So this is how TestNG help us to manage our test cases and then execute our test cases.